चित्त चोर बल मारे तोरे नैना बड़े चित्त चोर.
Good evening, everyone. Book launches are always special as they celebrate new books on the shelf and writing milestones achieved by the author. Such events are momentous since they serve as launchpads to connect with literature lovers and encourage words about the book and the author's writing journey. Today, we are glad to be a part of a grand book launch event at ITC Windsor in Bengaluru, the flower city of India. Out of the bouquet of multifaceted initiatives, Prabha Foundation is elated to launch Aabhas Maldahiyar's book, Babur, the Chessboard King, under its prized initiative called Kitaab. I, Poonam Bafna, SAS Women of Coimbatore, warmly welcomes you all to a grand book launch event organized by Prabha Foundation. Shree Cements Limited is supporting the event as a part of their CSR initiative. Celebrating Maldahiyar's writing achievement and making an official unveiling of his latest book in the gracious presence of chief guests T V Mohandas Pai, Vikram Sampath, and Mr. Naveen Jha, whom we are awaiting, makes today's book launch all the more special. Before the evening proceeds further, it would be a pleasure for me to share some words about Prabha Foundation. Prabha Foundation, founded by the eminent literary and cultural activist, late Dr. Prabha has a colossal presence as an organization that encourages and promotes literary and cultural heritage on the global map, chartering a glorious journey of 40 years under the golden vision of its founder, Karma Hi Jeevan Hai, work is life. The foundation curates landmark literary and cultural events that enjoy global reach and niche audiences. The foundation enjoys noble patronage of Shree Cements Limited and the assistance of distinguished associates, hospitality and venue partners, and the SAS Women of India. The foundation has several boutique literary initiatives under its wing: an author's afternoon, the Right Circle, Kalam, Akar. Out of the most prized stellar literary initiative, Kitaab holds a special place as it celebrates the birth of every new book and provides a platform for authors to showcase their newest literary creations to a discerning audience. May I now request respected chief guest, eminent Indian businessman and philanthropist T V Mohandas Pai, and eminent author Vikram Sampath to come on stage, please. I also request Aabhas Maldahiyar and senior author Sai Swarupa Iyer, who will be in the conversationalist chair for today's book launch, book-based discussions with the author, to come up on stage, please. It's a pleasure to have you all amongst us. May I now request Anandita Chatterjee to come up on the stage and felicitate chief guests T V Mohandas Pai, Vikram Sampath, Aabhas Maldahiyar, and Sai Swarup Pai with Ajrak Dupattas. Prabha Khaitan Foundation is a name to reckon with when it comes to promoting traditional handloom, handicraft, and cultural diversities. To further this cause, the organization has implemented sending of cross-city mementos across different cities in India. Today, we have the felicitation done with Ajrak dupattas in sync with this philosophy of the foundation. Ajrak, which is symbolic of Sindhi culture and traditions, is a unique form of block printing practiced by artisans of the Kutch region. Block printing, wooden blocks are used to create lovely designs and patterns. Natural minerals and vegetable dyes are generally used for making Ajrak clothes. Before the unveiling of the book, allow me to share a few words about our author today in the limelight, Aabhas Maldahiyar. Aabhasji is an architect and urban designer who amalgamates his intense love for history with captivating storytelling. His architectural masterpieces, envisioned as repositories of future stories, ignite his diverse literary odyssey spanning Marxist and ex-Marxist phases. He is also a RCS fellow. Initially embracing Marxism in architecture school, Aabhas's visit to the Ajanta caves ignited a profound transformation in him, shifting from Marxist literature to crafting fiction inspired by the Red ideology. He delved deeper into the realms of history and politics. His debut non-fiction, Modi Again, an ex-communist manifesto, chronicles this remarkable journey. Babur, the Chessboard King, stands as the inaugural volume in his forthcoming series of Timrud Gurkhaiyan, founded on primary sources. A skilled reader of Persian manuscripts, Aabhas offers a distinctive lens to historical narratives. He is a key founding member of the Foundation for Indian Historical and Cultural Research, dedicated to advancing original research based on primary sources in Indian history. I extend a very warm welcome to you. Now it's time for the most important moment of the evening, the unveiling of Aabhasji's book, Babur, the Chessboard King. May I request Anil Katoria ji and Anandita Chatterjee, Executive Trustee of Prabha Khaitan Foundation, and Ms. Tejal to join us on stage.
For very many reasons. I've been watching Aabhas tweet a lot about history, and I was struck by the curiosity he had, because he used to go to primary sources, original sources, to tweet and to counter people who were running fake narratives. Our history published in India is full of fake narratives written by people who want to control our minds. And we are all victims, innocent victims of this kind of activity for very many years, because we never bothered to question anybody who wrote a book. And the people who wrote such books were people who were motivated for political reasons, particularly the Marxists, that captured the entire writing of history in this country based on politics. A few years after independence, I think after when Indira Gandhi became Prime Minister, with the help of the leftists, and they, under Nurul Hasan, captured all the big institutions, including JNU, and ran a shut shop where they made sure their point of view was published all over the country, and it became part of textbooks. And all of us and our children were innocent victims of this kind of a narrative, and we are brought up to believe that Indians were very happy when conquerors came, destroyed our temples, destroyed our culture, killed our forefathers, butchered them, and ruled them, and we are very happy to be ruled. We're very happy to be slaves of people who came from outside for many years. We're very happy to be poor and controlled by a group of people in Delhi, the Lutyens gang. Because after independence, one set of imperialists who ruled this country for many years were replaced by another set of imperialists who tried to control our mind and who tried to rule India from Delhi and impoverish us from 1950 to 1990. Because if you look at economics, you find that. But the biggest danger was our minds were captured And we were very innocent because most of us were engaged in earning our livelihood. We didn't have much in this country because they're impoverished, and we earned our livelihood and we didn't bother. But that impact happened on us when today we see so many Indians go to the West, become academics and abuse us and bring us down in the world's esteem and try to beat us down every time we do well and write books degrading our culture, our civilization, our history, etc. And through this book and other books, people are now showing that there was great resistance to these invaders who came from outside. And the resistance was enormous, and the story of the resistance and the fight were kept away for very long. We were a very large country with 550, 600 kingdoms. People came from outside, and it worked. In fact, I remember a dinner at Nandan Nilekani's house with George Soros, the infamous George Soros, when he asked L.C. Jain a question: how did 100,000 white Britishers come and rule a country of 330 million people? We are all astonished how it happened. And then L.C. Jain said, we also were astonished, fighting the battle for independence. And then we found that political power was in the hands of a few in each of these kingdoms. So when an invader came and dethroned those few and stepped into the shoes, nothing changed for the people. Nothing changed for the people because the lives went on, the top changed. So after independence, nothing changed for us because the top went away, a new top came, and we were still wallowing in poverty. And that was the story, and that's why it happened over time till political conscience came to India through a mass movement. And you must remember that the Congress was a grouping of the elite. It's only Mahatma Gandhi who came back to India in 1915, right, Vikram? And then went all across India and saw the poverty of the Indian people, who agitated for involving a mass movement, awakening the Indian and giving pride back to a much beaten people. If you read the book, The Case for India by Will Durant, you'll understand what India was and what India had become. I mean, our minds have been shut out to all that. And Aabhas, among all people, have been tweeting, and we had a dinner once with Abhay Jain was there and others were there. I don't know whether Vikram, you were there. And we told him, why don't you write a book? And I'm very happy this book has been released after many, many years of hard work. And most of all, what we must commend Aabhas for is, he learned Persian. Because he learned Persian, read the original sources, he'll tell you the story, and from that sources, he wrote this book, quoting people who wrote about history as it unfolded before their eyes, and not history as thought of by some malevolent people much later in the 20th century, and who never read the original writings in Persian, but wrote the translation and translation and translation by other people who translate in the way they wanted. And learning Persian and working hard, and I think I was looking at the pages, there must be about 60, 70 pages of quotes and sources, Aabhas. So he has followed, if you'll pardon me in saying, the illustrious Vikram Sampath, whose book Savarkar, I think 30% is full of sources, right, Vikram? And when Vikram wrote the book, Vikram knew he's going to be threatened by people, he's going to be criticized by people, they're going to go after him, and it happened, a lot of people went after him, but they could not destroy the scholarship in the book. But everything he wrote had a source, and the source was verifiable, and that is important. And this book carries the story of Babur, a small-time person in Central Asia who never had a kingdom, who lived in a tent and who wandered all around, finally struck it lucky and came across, and through many years came to Kabul and then came to Delhi and conquered, a small-time king. And at that point of time, Aabhas, you can tell us, in our history, there was exhaustion out of battle in that area because people are battling all the time, and there was exhaustion, and the Delhi kingdom had become Delhi kingdom had become a Mauj and Maja kingdom where they become decadent. So there were not many people who could resist and fight. The same thing happened at the time when Islam conquered Iran and other countries. When the Arabs came out after the death of Prophet Muhammad, they came out and they went to Iran, called the Sassanid Empire. And that point of time, the Sassanid Empire in Iran had been fighting the Byzantine Empire, the remnants of the Romans, in Constantinople for decades, and both were exhausted by the war. And here came these Arabs riding across and easily defeated one of the biggest empires in the world, the Sassanid Empire at that point of time, but the Byzantines stood firm till the Turks came and drove them out. So there are points of history when things happen, but then history is written by victors. We were losers. And our history has not been written. Now people like Aabhas are coming forward and writing the history from primary sources, from the writings of the victors, to see what it was, but from our point of view. And I hope all of you will read this book. Books will become part of essential writing in our history. And history will be rewritten based on facts, based on data, based on the truth, and not based on fake narratives and creation. I won't talk about the book because I read part of it. I'm sure he will talk and Vikram will talk. But I will comment to you because we in India have to rewrite our history. But rewriting history doesn't mean we glorify something else. We have to be honest, we have to be truthful and write history as it comes. The Marxist school writes history from a subaltern way of looking to say that there are some oppressed and we have to see it from the oppressed side. But instead of seeing from the oppressed side, because we happen to be the oppressed, they wrote it from the oppressor's side to show people how a great country it was, everything was honky-dory. You'll be surprised that 52% of India's income at one point of time went to the Mughal Empire. They had Nach and Mauch. They destroyed our universities. They never built a university, never had public works. They built grand mausoleums, and he'll tell you about the mausoleums for themselves. And apart from that, Nach and Mauch in the court, and the rest of the people were impoverished, died through famine. The brutal occupation and the brutality of what happened has to be told, and Aabhas is part of that. So thank you, Aabhas, for all of this, and I do hope that the book does well, and we'll have much more scholarship from you.
May I now kindly request Vikram Sampath to share a few words with us.
A very good evening, everyone. It's always such a pleasure to be part of a tastefully put evening by Khaitan Foundation. And it's a double pleasure to actually be speaking less and on an event which is not my book launch, because that is usually what most Khaitan Foundation events I end up speaking at. But today is very momentous. One, we almost feel like we're sitting in a Mughal Darbar and also launching this very tastefully produced and designed book by my very dear friend, younger brother, Aabhas. Now, Aabhas accuses me of many things, of which there is very little verification, which I can do, including having converted him into vegetarianism. Now, I really don't know how that actually happened. He tells me a story which I can't believe. But the other accusation, we shall take that offline. That's a tougher nut to crack. So the other accusation that he can make of me is something that I shall plead guilty to, which is like pulling him away from the toxicity of social media, which he still tries to revel in on and off. And his wife Tejal would probably be, agree with me on that social media, especially Twitter, and the kind of toxic wars that happen where people are spreading screenshots and fighting, and there are all kinds of so-called historians these days with terrible makeup and all of that, which do lots of things on social media. Aabhas was someone who had the passion in him. He had the fire in him to bring out the truth. But I thought he was going in a direction which is not going to help in the long run, because social media is very ephemeral. Today a tweet is there, tomorrow it will go, tomorrow Twitter itself or X or whatever it is, that itself may go down. And in the process, all these tweets, all these facts, all these figures, they will just disappear. YouTube may just close down shop and all your content which is online can disappear. So as an author, I would like to believe that the only alternative to the distortion that Mr. Pai rightfully spoke about is scholarship. And books are the only way in which you can put out a tangible counter viewpoint. And again, as an author, I would feel like wanting to believe that books will stay longer. Long after we are dead and gone, 100, 200 years, our books might still be read. So it was very essential when you're saying this counterpoint to a Marxist hegemonical viewpoint of Indian history to actually write and write and write more. And that is why I kept telling Aabhas that please don't indulge in these things. You use that knowledge and the passion that you have into writing this book. And very opportunely, we also got a lot of help from the Motwani Jadeja Foundation, and I think Naveen, who's there right now, who's come from the foundation, and Asha Jadeja, who last year we launched this Rajiv Circle Scholars for Indian History, which gave out fellowships to 7 people with the idea that these are going to bring out well-researched, well-written books which will be published in this way in the mainstream media. You have to enter the enemy's battlefield and attack. Savarkar, about whom I wrote, his famous phrase was "Shatruncha Shibirat." शत्रु के घर के में अंदर घुस के मारना चाहिए. तो you have to use the same techniques, the best of publishing houses, the best of research, and the Motwani Foundation and the RCS Fellowship was kind enough to have this first edition of the fellowship, and I'm so glad to also not only a friend's book being published, but this is the first major outcome of that fellowship which we are celebrating today. And in the course of the rest of this year, there will be 6 more books which will come out through this fellowship, which will bring out other parts of Indian history also to the fore. And with Aabhas is also my partner in crime in another initiative, which is the Foundation of Indian Historical and Cultural Research, where we'd like to do the same thing, go back to the primary sources and, configure and demystify what issues of Indian history are there. Now in India, it's a very peculiar case where you can be a scholar of ancient Indian history and not know a single word of Sanskrit or Prakrit or Pali. And you can proudly even proclaim that. I'm a historian of medieval India and I'm not taking names. You all know whom I'm referring to. You will not know a single word of Persian or Arabic, and you will rely on translations done by Westerners, or people here with biases, with incomplete information. So the best way is to go back to the basics, go back to the primary sources. And so part of this fellowship, and I really commend Aabhas's initiative, that he picked up a language which is very complicated. For my own forthcoming book on Tipu Sultan, I tried learning Persian. Maybe I'm older than him, so the very idea that you have to write from right to left and with so many dots and dashes, it just didn't enter my, cranium at least. So I gave up midway. But I'm really glad he's done that and read the Babar Nama himself. And this will be, I think, the first of 7 books on, again, what we call the Mughals, but who are actually Timurids. I'm sure many of us didn't even know that was the nomenclature used for this dynasty. Now, our whole coloring, we romanticize and valorize these people so much. When you think of the Mughals, you have Mughal-e-Azam, and you think they are as handsome as Prithviraj Kapoor or Hrithik Roshan in Jodha Akbar. They spoke, the language we knew. They married, there was syncretic culture, Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb. They married Rajput princesses, allowed them to do Krishna Puja in their homes. All kinds of fanciful stories which historians, popular media, Bollywood has perpetuated. And eminent politicians also, they say things like they became us. But did they really become us? And Aabhas drops truth bombs, I think, right from the first page, from the introduction. If you read, you'll be amazed, what are the kind of subterfuge that was done to all of us. And as Mr. Pai said, innocently we were all victims because we didn't know that an alternative existed. They became us, but at the heights of the Mughal Empire, I think even in Timurid Empire maybe, is that in Aurangzeb's time, as Professor Athar Ali also says about the Mughal nobility in Aurangzeb's time, 45% were Persians, 17% were Turanis, and only 7% were actually Indian Muslims. And they would actually look down upon the Indian Muslim converts as being dirty, dark, and unhygienic and all of that. When most of them migrated even to Pakistan, they were all looked down as muhajirs. It's not a Hindu-Muslim story at all. The Indian Muslims suffered as much at the hands of these people, and they did not really get positions of power. The Iranians and Turanis, they formed, I think, 1% of the Indian population at the height of the empire. And they controlled everything. The elite who controlled everything, the Mauj, the Nach, the Ghana, and the hedonism is all that they did largely. Mr. Pai spoke about how the money was drained, and in fact, in the very introduction to this book, Aabhas writes, and it breaks your heart to say that all of us, when we go to North India, we'll have that mandatory family picture in front of the Taj Mahal. Of course, it is a beautiful monument. It is the pride of India. But it's built by Indian sweat and toil and blood, not necessarily some largesse of some Mughal emperor. Because at that same time, as he documents with facts and figures, large parts of India, the Deccan, Gujarat, Malwa, were reeling under famine. And in spite of that, heavy taxes were put on all of us Indians to finance these projects. And as a result, almost 8 million people died during that famine and the extortion of taxes during Shah Jahan's rule. Now, we all call Winston Churchill the killer of Bengal in the Bengal famine of 1943, where 3 million people were killed. But the 8 million people who were killed as part of this famine, we are not even told about. And we also, I mean, of course, the thing of beauty is a joy forever. So no one is advocating that you break down the Taj Mahal and then look for a Tejo Mahalya beneath it or anything. Maybe there is something inside. I think he's going to bring out more truth bombs, as his introduction suggests, in the future editions, where he will say what was underneath the Taj Mahal. Of course, the RSS Sarsang Chalak will tell him that please don't keep looking for a shivling under every mosque. And he may leave that attempt thereafter. But it is important to at least put these facts, you're at least aware. We are not in a historical amnesia. And in being ignorance is bliss is not a great condition to be in. At least go there and know, okay, this is a beautiful monument, but in every brick and mortar of this building, there are the tears and sweat and blood and toil of 8 million Indian brothers and sisters who died in different parts of India. That realization also is I think, an important factor. So, of course, as Mr. Pai said, it is very, very difficult to be a historian today in India. Because history is the battlefield that we are all living in. Sometimes when you open the news channels and see the debates, you wonder if Aurangzeb and Tipu Sultan are fighting elections, because they are the subject of all the raucous debates that go on, tell me in 1 minute, yes, no, and everyone, give me 30 seconds, give me 20 seconds. History can't be spoken of in such unnuanced manner, but that is how the polity is today, so be it as it may. So it's a very, very polarizing discipline where people are constantly fighting. And there has been a pre-established clique, the dog in the mangers, who will say, we are the ones who will determine who is a historian, who is going to write, what they are going to write. And they also talk about Brahminical hegemony, which is actually what they are doing is pretty much the same, where you determine who enter that hallowed club and on whose terms. So I've been a victim of that for the last 16 years that I've been in this field. And I, as a well-wisher for Aabhas, I would tell him that he should brave himself for very, very difficult times ahead. You should grow a skin which is thick, a thick hide, not be sensitive. There will be lots of attacks. Already I was seeing on social media people questioning him, where is your degree, where is your... So you should say, like, I think, Diwar, mere paas maa hai. So, mere paas kya hai, tere paas kya hai, I have a JNU degree. You have the blessings of a lot of Indians who want the true history of India to be out. So brave yourself for all those attacks, which hopefully you don't face as much as some of us did. And this is a tradition for the longest time. I think this is a long chain of people who have been in this field, which you are, this mashal is being bequeathed to you, so to say, of, say, Jadunath Sarkar, R.C. Majumdar, Sitaram Goyal, Dharampal, Ram Swaroop, Meenakshi Jain, Conrad Elst, and so many others who, under much more difficult times, when there was not awareness, when there was not political climate also being favorable to them, they managed to do their research and write what they did. So today maybe things are slightly better. So let's use that in more profitable ways and ensure more and more such scholarship comes. Truth bombs are the only way to bust the wrong narrative. Light is the best disinfectant. So let the primary sources be illuminated and let all the truth come out. history or itihasa as we call in India is it thus happened, itihasa. So as it happened, let us lay it bare in front of everyone. Who will feel bad, who will feel aggrieved, that is their problem. So we will tell the truth and also learn to bear the consequences for it. So once again, a very, very heartfelt congratulations, Aabhas, and I do hope this book does very, very well, and this is just one of several bestsellers that you're going to write in the coming years.
You know, one fascinating fact, I remember, I want to compliment Prabha Khaitan Foundation because many years ago, Vikram was sitting here. And like a first timer talking about his books. But there was nobody there to warn him the consequences. Now, because of you, many years later, Vikram is telling here and telling the rookie author, first time author, you know, good, you're going along the way, follow this, beware of this, warning him. But don't worry, I'm there to support you. Congratulations.
May I now request Mr. Pai and Mr. Vikram to step down.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Shri Patre Namaha. Thank you for this honor and thank you, Aabhas, for this opportunity. It was, I must say, it's a fascinating book. The very introduction section had me really, really fascinated and intrigued about so much that we don't know. And that brings to me a very powerful statement. I had to note down, quotes, because it's not a, it's not a boring book, or it's not a book full of just, insensitive facts. There is a lot of, I think, along with passion and rigor, I think there is a lot of civilizational force into every sentence. So, you spoke about, you wrote about NCERT syllabus, historical syllabus, and you say because of the wrong syllabus, because of the wrong, non-factual history that is being forced down, it's not there are many people who question, it's just history, we write the exam and we forget about it, so why make such a hue and cry? What's the harm? Whatever we learn, we are going to forget anyways. So, but you say it's not a wee bit harm, but a catastrophe set to dismantle the pride and respect of our land and civilization. And that's a very strong and powerful statement, Aabhas. So can we, discuss more on that, the need to get into the right history?
Very good evening to all of you. I'm glad that all of you showed up, and of course, it's my first work in the Timurid series, not the Mughal one. And of course, I will not ask for any pardon that if anything has gone wrong or something, because in the past, many historians have done a lot, but I've tried not to repeat those big blunders. Yet, going back to the question what Sai Sarupa asked, I have pointed out that NCERT creates a narrative which is like a catastrophe, and it will just dislodge civilizational ethos which you would have had from your upbringing, but suddenly it will just go away. And I was very responsible and honest when I stated it. And in fact, my editor made me look at it twice and thrice, that are you sure that you are going to put this sentence? Because this is quite a serious allegations against a very important body, that is NCERT. But I was quite sure about it, and I have some valid reason. I have also given the sources. But to tell a few to you, like right now we see a lot about North-South divide. I will not go back to the Aryan invasion theory and all, that all done and dusted. But we all are aware about the Mughals. Of course, they were not Mughals, but let me call them as, because that is how you know them. But how many of us during the NCERT curriculum, or when we were dealing with the NCERT books, aware about the Vijayanagar Empire? It is very important, because if a guy sitting up there in Delhi is aware about what Vijayanagar Empire was, he will at least know that this was part of my civilizational ethos. Now it becomes very important, because there was a period when in 13th century or so, Central Asia considered Samarkand to be one of the richest land. There was a narrative in the land of Samarkand. There was a narrative in whole of Central Asia that that's the richest land. So youngest son of Taimur, that is Shah Rukh, sent out his ambassador Abdul Razak to Vijayanagar. because he had heard that there is an empire which is wealthier than our Herat. So he just wanted him to have a look at it and bring back the report. Abdul Razak comes to Vijayanagar and he's astonished to see the grandeur of the Vijayanagar empire. He's surprised to see that the palace of the king is way larger than the largest bazaar what they have in Herat. And this is Shah Rukh, who is the ancestor of Babur. Now,
Precious stones were sold on the footpath.
Yeah,
That's
and
the
so
grandeur of Vijayanagara.
yeah, and the account what Abdul Razak has given is so surprising. It was, of course, surprising to me because I certainly never knew that, yes, there was Vijayanagar. But was it that rich? I was certainly not aware of it. And so, if this narratives are peddled into your mind that you hear a lot about Mughals, there was some very, of course, I want the people to know about the Mughals, the Timurids, because it's important to know each and everyone who has been part of your land, whichever way he or she may have been, but you need to know about them. But you just can't not talk about certain important people like Vijayanagar Empire. So had people known about it. Now, second point which I will make out here is about King Ashoka. So it's very important. Most of us know that Ashoka was Ashoka was not a Buddhist when he attacked Kalinga. Rather, he became Buddhist after the Battle of Kalinga.
He was filled with remorse suddenly.
Yes,
this fine day after the war.
And suddenly he became Buddhist. But when we go back to the primary sources, that is Maski inscription or Masaki inscription, which had appeared in 260 BCE, which talks about he is already a Buddhist. And this inscription is before the Kalinga war. And so Charles Allen, who has written quite an apologia for Ashoka, like I won't say that it's a complete analysis of Ashoka, but yet he also admits that Ashoka was actually a Buddhist in 265 BCE. So even an apologist for Ashoka is clear that he was a Buddhist before the Battle of Kalinga. But the NCERT books tells this to you, and most of the people, like I come from Jharkhand, which was earlier Bihar. That there we knew only two things: either you have to become an engineer or doctor, or you become an IAS officer. That there you do.
Very different from the rest of the country.
Yeah, perhaps. So the whole point was that if you will never be having any touch with history after you have walked out of your schools. So you have grown up with a narrative, okay, Ashoka became a Buddhist after Kalinga war, there was something, and so the socialist ideas also gets in, because if you read about the Ashoka's policy, you will know that these ideas were a bit too socialist, right? And somehow it's actually going against the primary sources. So if I tell you something which is against the sources, so what exactly am I doing? Is it not an intellectual crime? It is a crime. It is of course a crime, because you're baking a mind which tomorrow will become a bureaucrat or whatsoever, and then he will peddle the narrative, and somehow we know how the things work.
Sure, that's something for us to ponder over. Even those who have started researching the true history, I think there are times where we think, why are we doing this? And it's important for us to remember that. And so, as Vikramji said, right from page 1, there are truth bombs, and the biggest truth bomb was that Babur did not consider himself a Mughal. And you mentioned he uses the word Mughal some 400 times in his Babarnama, and he has the worst opinion about Mughals. So, who were these Mughals, and who were Timurid, Gurkhania, and how were they related? Or why did they not like each other? I think there's a lot of exposition, and people deserve to know.
Yeah. So it's a truth that Babur called his empire Timurid Gurkhania. So Gurkhania means son-in-law. It's a Central Asian language in which it means son-in-law. And Timurid because you are from the lineage of Timur. So there's a very important story behind it, which we all must know. Because there was certainly, I won't say it was a conspiracy, it just happened to be like that. So, Timur is a person who is in the 10th generation of a common ancestor to Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan is in 5th generation, Timur is in 10th generation. The forefather or the ancestor is called Tunamai Khan.
By the way, this genealogical table has been captured in the book. You can refer to that.
Yeah. So, And Genghis Khan was a very secular person. When I say this, like, he killed everyone without looking at what religion you belong to. He was very clear that I have to butcher, I have to kill. It doesn't matter that where you come from, what you do. So, but in the contrast, if you look at Taimur was very clear, which is written by his biographer Yazdi. He makes it clear on the first page that Taimur's opinion, or rather the dream, is to Islamize whole of the world. He is quite clear. Now, you will be surprised to know that in around 18th century, when the colonization was in the peak, the people who belonged to the Enlightenment sector or who believed in the Enlightenment idea, they were of an opinion that the colonists need to take opinion from or learn from Genghis Khan, because they were equally barbarian. It's all recorded. And the person, like, you will be surprised to know, there's a historian called Gibbon. So in the 18th century, he's writing about Dr. Locke. So Dr. Locke is supposed to be the guru of Voltaire, whom we all keep on quoting. And he says that Dr. Locke's opinion was very similar to Genghis Khan. So you can say that Dr. Locke is equal to Genghis Khan. So the guru of Voltaire is equal to Genghis Khan. So this is opinion of a very strong historian of that period, Gibbon. So, and they are writing about what you mean by secularism, what you mean by socialism. So all these fancy words what we use are being written by these guys, and they see Mughals in of a great of esteem light. And also, the European world had this disease of looking at everything from a racial point of view. So yes, Babur was a Mongol by the genetics of where he comes from, for sure. But culturally he was a Timurid, because Taimur didn't saw himself as Persian, didn't saw himself as the Mongol. He saw himself as Persian, because there was a thing called Persian manner. Aaj bhi hum baat karte hain, we talk about Farsi mannerism and all. So that's where it coming for. There was a whole thing that we will look to follow the Persian ideas, and that's the reason why, if they were Mongols or Mughals, why didn't they use the language of the Mongolia, but they used Persian? So that tells you the thing. And this guy Taimur was a very smart guy, and he wanted to become caliph. And you can't become caliph. To become caliph, you need certain qualification. And also, he wanted to be the Khan. Again, he can't become the Khan because it doesn't come from the Genghis Khan lineage. So whoever in the lineage of Genghis Khan, only they can. So what he does, he marries into the house of Genghis Khan, as in that lineage. And he calls himself, I'm Gurkhania, son-in-law. So I'm going to establish empire which is going to be called Timurid Gurkhania. That's what he does for the first time, Gurkhanian. And he puts his puppet into the Mongol empire who just listened to him, and he takes the title of Amir Taimur. So he's not called Sultan or something, he's known as Amir Taimur. So, and Babur always saw Mongols or the Mughals in a very bad light, because he considered them to be uncivilized. In his opinion, they are the one who always create trouble. Wherever they will walk in, there will be riots or something. But yeah, they fought battles for Babur for sure. They were like mercenaries or whatever you may like to call it. And he actually Babur talks about Mongol quite often. Humayun talks about the Mongols, and they abuse them a lot. They are not of great opinion of Mongols. And for the first time, the name of the empire was changed during Akbar's reign. He called his empire as Hindustan, Empire of Hindustan. But no one, and in fact, Aurangzeb also considered himself Turani, and he never saw himself as Mongol. So they never had this point of view that we are Mongol at all. So how can you call them? They themselves never liked to be called as Mongols. So, but Europeans, because they saw the racial angle to it, they called them Mongols. So that's why when Manuki wrote the book, I forgot the name of the book, De Mongor, Sangor de Mongor, something like that. So yeah. So in that book, he's using the term Mongol. Franco Bernier, who is again a physician who has come to the court of Akbar, and he has given some very interesting account in the time of Akbar, the tolerant Akbar, and that will astonish people who think Akbar to be a tolerant guy. So that apart. So they use this term in the racial point of view, but they call themselves as Timurid and consider themselves to be more Persian than Mongol all the time.
Wow, that's again a explanation of the truth bomb, and I hope the so-called degree historians, listen to it and try to understand it. If not, just blindly attack you for that. And You just quoted quite a lot of sources right now, so that makes me very interested about the process of your research, because I know it's hard learning Persian, getting into the source literature, trying to put a thread through multiple sources. So how did you go about all this?
I won't say it was an easy task, because it certainly wasn't. And it was more that I wanted to reach to the truth. And because I'm an architect at the end of the day, and I do buildings for my living. That's what it is. But the whole point was that it always intrigued me that, again, not to hurt anyone, but just I'm trying to be honest, because the time I was growing, that's when the Ram Mandir movement was very much in fire. It was there, and we heard that there's a Babri and all those stuff. So it always intrigued me that who is this guy Babri? And okay, because I took the term Babri, so I'll just disclose Babri is a name for a guy whose Babur was quite passionate about, and he had found him in the Kabul camp bazaar. So, and it happened during his first marriage. So when he's married, so he is not going to live with his wife, and somehow his grandmother and mother is insisting that he should live with your wife, but he's very passionate about Babri and he likes to spend time with him. So the term Babri only appears twice. One is for a Babri script what Babur has created. See, whatever Babur may would have done, I will certainly appreciate two qualities of Babur. He was a great poet, he certainly was, and he was a great scholar, and he created a script, which is a great thing in itself.
Created a script
Called Babri. So that means that Babri as a term always was there with him. So he was quite connected to this guy. But coming back to whole thing, that this Ram Janmabhoomi had certainly intrigued me, and I wanted to know that who these people are. And then when all, it's around say 2016-17, the whole discussion around Mughals or Timurids became quite heated debate in the TV, that like how Vikram Sampath was saying that as if Aurangzeb and other people are fighting elections. So they are still very relevant on the TV screens. They are, right? And someone will come and say that Kashi Vishwanath temple is, the Gyan Vyapi is the way it is because of syncretic architecture. It was for Dine Ilahi and all those kind of things. So all these narratives we are building in. So I wanted to go back to what the truth is. That was the moment. And at first I began to read through the secondary sources, and I will be honest, I read Irfan Habib, and Irfan Habib's books, Akbar's India, is fantastic, and I appreciate that book because it somehow refutes his own speeches in public. Because I'm quite honest about it, because he will be singing all the praise to Akbar most of the time, that Akbar this, Akbar that. And by the way, his name was not Akbar, he was Jalaluddin Muhammad. And any of you know that how did he got this title Akbar? Any idea, any clue? There's a narrative that some Rajput king had given him the title Akbar, but Akbar Nama says that when he became the king, he called himself Akbar, the great, or whatever. Like Akbar means great, so you cannot say Akbar the great, because if you are already calling someone Akbar, you are done, he is great. So he had given himself title according to Akbar Nama. So Irfan Habib's book on Akbar India is so fascinating, where he has given interesting account of 50% of life of Akbar is quite an intolerant one, where he is even not able to tolerate the Shias. So it's in an early phase of his life, and it happens to be that there's an incident where Amir Khusro's is buried somewhere, and a Shia saint has been brought and is buried. Akbar comes to know, and he is so furious that he says that how can a pious Sunni saint be lying, and you bring a heretic Shia in front of nearby to him. And this is what Akbar is saying about the Shias. And this is coming from first from the horse's mouth, as in Irfan Habib's book. And then I checked the source, he's quoting Badauni, and Badauni actually is talking about it. So those things started to make me more interested. I began to go into the primary sources. I read the translated text, and then I came across an interesting book by Kishore Kunal, Ayodhya Revisited, because I was interested in Ram Janmabhoomi movement. So that book is a 800-page good book. where though he talks about the facts about the Ayodhya Ram Janmabhoomi, but it's kind of an apologia for Babur too. Let me be very honest. A lot of people praise Kishore Kunal's that book, but that book has a lot of apologia for Babur, where he talks about his good tolerance, etc., etc. But that book really talks about how these translations of Babur Nama are different.
That's the challenging part of it. On one side, there are these eulogizing collection of accounts, and on the other side, there are racist narratives. And how do you extract truth from those?
Yeah, so it's very important to go back to the original source, because in 1953, when Jadunath Sarkar was retiring, he said that this is the message to my pupils and their pupils. And he said that it's a glorious time for India because we have access to the original authorities and the original manuscripts. And so we can now go back and bring some very interesting history books. But unfortunately, just 2 decades after that, the project which he would have initiated, as in the way the writing would have been, it never went the way it was supposed to be. Like, for example, I will take the names, say Romila Thapar. She writes a book on Somnath, right? So she builds a case that Somnath was destroyed by Ghazni because he thought that the sculpture is of Al-Manat. Al-Manat is actually one of the deities in Arabia, and it said that in the Kaaba it was one of the idol which was destroyed, right? But someone carried it and brought it to Somnath, and that's the idol which was installed. And this is Romila Thapar is quoting somebody, Faruqi. Faruqi is a historian in, say, 1920s or 1930s. I checked the Faruqi's text. Faruqi is quoting original source, Persian source. When you go back to that Persian source, the guy is not at all talking about it. And then you check Al-Biruni, what he's talking about. He is saying that he hated the idol worshippers and he's doing it. And Al-Biruni is so happy. We go gaga around Al-Biruni that he did this for science and all this, but again, there's a lot of plagiarism and forget that. But irrespective of that, that guy has given a lot of truthful account about what was happening. So when we have these primary sources, what is Romila Thapar doing? Why she needed to lie? You can be truthful. I'm at least happy for Irfan Habib Books Akbar's India because he's very truthful, though he may be saying something else in public.
So it's about checking the sources, then the sources of those sources, and those sources of those sources going to triple level depth and then verifying, who quoted
triangulation
who and
is very important. It's
yeah.
very important because even if like translators do have a bias, they have like Annette Beveridge who translated the Chagtai Turkic manuscript of Babur Nama. So she did it in 1920s, and I will not speak much about it. I'll just leave a clue because I'm addressing this in my next book. So she had left an inscription that Mir Baqi Tashkandi destroyed this, the Ram Janmabhoomi temple, and she's confirmed that this is it. I have some other things to say, which I will not say right now because this I'm going to reveal in the next book, that what exactly had happened to Ram Janmabhoomi and when it was destroyed, whether that inscription it falls or something. Then she is talking about one more inscription which other historian has quoted, and is talking about Babur giving a will or writing a will for Humayun that you have to respect all the religions. And she says that this is a false inscription. It's not a correct one. So I found that this claim that this is a false one, this is a correct one, and her claim that the Mir Baqi Tashkandi issue, that's not actually a truth one. So which I will reveal in the next book, in the sequel. But so you come across those biases. Same person can have different biases as per whom they're serving in that period.
Okay, I have to thank you, Aabhas ji, because it's such a tough process to go literally excavating for truth and then presenting the whole thing in the new, not new, I mean, I'd say right form of history that we are getting. So getting back to the book, there's a lot of chapters delve into the political dynamics before and during Babur's time, and you've also made a statement, if to understand Babur, if one understands Taimur, we can understand Babur. That sentence intrigued me. And then you mentioned about the Christian persecution much before Babur, And no, I'm interested to know what are those social dynamics that shaped Babur's outlook.
So we need to go back to Mongol history, as in most of the people like there is a one statement which a lot of historians and so-called right-wing side also make, that Islam, the Islamic invasion never stopped. It went on and on, but Islam had its bad times, and it was certainly during the period of Mongols. So there was a period when Hughlyu Khan was who came in the lineage of Genghis Khan. He was just
Mongols were religiously,
Muslims.
Mongols were not Muslims.
the Genghis Khan followed Tengri Buddhism, which Sudhanshu Trivedi at times says it's Tantric Buddhism. I don't know. I'm not going to source, so I will not vouch through a politician's mouth. But he certainly was not a Muslim. He was following some kind of polytheism. It was certainly the case. So I'm looking forward to look into the Mongol history as well, what it was the case. But as I said initially that, they were a bit too secular because they never brought religion into their policy which was to butcher people. So they killed like anything. And though he persecuted a lot of Muslims, but you'll be surprised to know a Muslim territory gave him a title as defender of religion because he had saved the Muslims from Christians. So it's happening in Mongolia. So that's why I'm saying that he actually was very secular. And the moment the conversion of the Mongols happened into Islam, the whole thing changed. For the first time, Mongols, the earlier Mongols never brought swords against each other. Like whatever is in the family remains in the family. They respect their family tradition, and you just can't go against the family. For the first time, when Hughlyu Khan is sacked Baghdad and Baghdad is destroyed, and he was on such a he was in such a powerful position that he had just destroyed the whole Islamic civilization by then. And when that happened, so his brother Hussein Buka is so annoyed because he has been converted into Islam by a Sufi, and while he has got converted, he has got a lot of sympathy for his Muslim brethren and what is happening in Baghdad. And then he goes to his father and says that how can this happen? How can he do this to the Caliph? Caliph is sitting there in Baghdad, and it just can't happen. And so against the wish of his father, both of them cross the swords, and Hughlyu Khan gets defeated, and Hussein Buka wins the battle, and that's how the thing goes on. And now Islam has become like a state religion for the Mongols. So had that battle been other way, the whole history perhaps would have been very different. Because you just imagine that Mongols are still polytheist, and Baghdad is the power center in that era, because that's where you come to know about the golden era of Islam and everything, Abbasids and so on and on. So it was completely destroyed. It was gone. Now imagine that what would have been the historical dynamics. Perhaps Ottomans wouldn't have gone that powerful. Had Ottomans not gone that powerful, World War II, what happened to the Jews might not have happened after that, because it's all linked. What happened in Mopla. So the whole dynamics would have been very different altogether. But by then, once they come in power, the Muslims, the Christians start getting persecuted badly. So there are written accounts by the people in those regions in Central Asia that Christians just can't come out on the street, because if they will come out, it's a eyewitness account. And of course, one can say that how can you believe this and that? But what historians have is only those sources. Either you read history or don't. If you believe that, you can't believe that that can be true, okay, fine, that may not be true, but that's the only source we have, so we have to accept it. So Christians just couldn't walk onto the street. The moment the Mongols became the Muslims, the whole scenario was very different. And as I said, to know Babur, we must know Taimur, because Taimur essentially gives you a psyche that what they are aspiring for. Taimur wants caliphate. He wants to become the caliph, though he can't become. And he wants to become the Khan, though he can't. So that means they always want to be very powerful people. So one important question which everyone asks, that why Babur wanted to be buried only in Kabul. The only reason is that whatever he got, whatever best he got in his life before, because earlier he was living in tents, his life was very nomadic. Like many people think that it's a joke that those who lived in a tents, how can they build such glorious architecture? But that's not the joke, that's the truth, because he was not having a very interesting life, not a very stable life. And that's why he is called the Chessboard King. Because Yeah, that's a important. Why
It's
I
one of my future questions. So, yeah, why?
because if you play the chess, you will know that though the king dies, the game is over. But king is controlled by the other people, and and he is not very powerful. He just goes here, यहाँ से यहाँ, यहाँ से यहाँ. And he can go in all the four directions, but just one house, one chance, and Farishta, who is a Muslim chronicler, he had called him the chessboard king. And so, and that had been the life of Babur. But Babur was very aspirational. And because he got all the power in Kabul, for the first time he got a kingdom in Kabul. And he couldn't even get that much of power when he was in India. And when you read the sequel of the book, which is gonna come, you will know that Babur was not a very strong-holded person, even in India. Even in India, he was not very powerful. The empire began to grow only from the time of Akbar. The time were very turbulent for him.
I don't hear much about him, Chandra, who practically...
Yeah, only you hear that Babur was a great benevolent king. That's all you hear. But you don't know exactly that what Babur did. He had a very tragic life. As I say that, I felt very sympathetic for Babur when I was writing about his childhood, that at the age of 11, he lost his father and he's just coming and he's seeing that that's happening. So that's a big tragedy to see his father fall and die. And when his all uncle and everyone is surrounding him and all those things are happening. So it was certainly very tough for Babur to establish what he established. But irrespective of that, he certainly was affected by the Taimur psyche, which was to Islamize the whole world. He was quite clear about it. And his grandmother used to give this narratives. Ahsan Daulat Begum, who is his nani, the grandmother from mother's side. So she keeps telling about Taimur. Though she's coming from Genghis Khan lineage, she's telling the stories about Taimur, that Amir Taimur wanted this and that. So he grows up hearing those stories. So that's the reason why he was always fascinated about Hindustan. And he calls himself that I am third after Ghazni and Gori. So those who have known Ghazni and Gori can understand what Babur meant. So we can put carpet over the history, but those guys have written it so boldly, very clearly. Once you go back to the source, it's just starting in our eyes, and it's up to us that whether we pick the truth or not.
So that's a lot to take, and I'm particularly intrigued by the statement saying he was not as powerful when he was in India as he was in Kabul. So two things, you wrote about the India project of Babur failing for the second time. So two times, who were our heroes who defended the land, and were there strategic mistakes that Babur made?
Yes. So Babur was very young while he was venturing into these things. Like, he was born on February 14th, 1483. And so these all are happening in early of 1501 and 1502. So he's not even 20. So he's at the age when people matriculate, and if we relate to the current context. So he's a very young guy who certainly is not aware about how to conquer an empire, because he has all the elders and the counselors who almost try to conspire to get their own power. So even when his father died, his uncle is trying hard to get the throne. And in fact, his mama, as in his maternal uncle, one of the maternal uncle, is also trying very hard to get the throne. So even his cousin is trying to, cousin or half brother rather, Jahangir was the guy who has been put on throne for a certain period of time. And for a long time, he was always in fight with his cousins too, because though he was the rightful owner of the throne because it belonged to his father, he was never let to take it. So, but when he builds the empire in Kabul, it happened with the help of one of his Khan Dada. He calls his mama or the maternal uncle Dada. Many people can get confused that Dada is grandfather, but he's calling it, or brother, but he's calling it for his maternal uncle. So he helps him a lot to build an empire. Though he sees a lot of poverty in one of the reasons. Before coming to Kabul, he was in Tashkent. So in Tashkent, he says, he entered into the palace of his uncle, and he's so happy to enter into the palace after so many long time. Like, he's just in cloud nine. He's looking at it, and he expresses that how it feels to put a feet on the marble floor. He's talking about it. He's talking about what a palace means. So you can imagine that what this guy had seen. But again, he also says that in Tashkent, I face a lot of humiliation. I'm not given a lot of respect. And because he always had this, that I'm Timurid, I'm the last Timurid higher and last one from the lineage. So I should get that kind of, but he never got it. So he has a lot of complaints also, though he says in Babarnama that I have not written to complain, etc., blah, blah. But he is complaining a lot of times. If you read Babarnama, that mere saath ye nahi hua, wo nahi hua, etc. And in India, he was certainly not very powerful because he faced a lot of formidable people. One of them was Rana Sanga. So again, I will not talk much about Rana Sanga here because that's gonna come in the sequel. But one mention I will do is that before the Battle of Khanwa, where Rana Sanga loses it, and there was a battle of Bayana. So in that battle, the people who had gone to fight on the Babur's side, when they return, they are not agreed to go and fight in the next battle, because they are in the dreams they are seeing that those Rajput warriors are coming and killing them. And and it's recorded in Babarnama itself that they are so much in fear of those Rajput warriors that just
Written in Babarnama.
Babur has been, I feel that he has been quite honest at a lot of instances, but yeah.
Yeah, that's another common criticism I hear, that especially historians from our side rely too much on autobiographies, and there's a good chance that autobiographies themselves are kind of exaggerated or biased on one side or something. So what would you...
So I would say that I don't belong to right wing, left wing, I belong to history wing. So, and for history wing, there is only one thing, that we don't have a method. Like if we are in a laboratory, sitting in a laboratory, and you have given a certain method that how you are gonna do a salt analysis. There's a method to do it. Maybe that's not appropriate. Whatever may you feel, even to get those 20 marks in those 10th exam, you have to do it. There's a method to do it. I can't go beyond the source. So right now, the most authentic source to know about Babur is Babarnama. And if anybody has problem, they will have to find a source for it. And Babur, at times, they may be that he might not have written the truth. Like there's certain thing about Rana Sanga, which I will surely deal in the next book. But we apply a certain method of triangulation too. As in that you try to superimpose different ideas, that whatever has come from the contemporary period. And we must go to the contemporary sources. We should never choose the opinion of the people. Like, I don't want to say it right now, but there's some very, from our side, as you said, that there are many books which have got a lot of factually wrong information too. But again, it's because that they couldn't even understand the source. Because if the Marxists have failed to go back to the original source, even we have not gone back to the original source in the language. Like Al-Tabari's takes have been misinterpreted. I will not take the name of the books, but they are, right? So it's important to go back to the sources, and let's be the history wing.
Sure. So I never dreamt in my life that I would be recommending a book on Babur. People, but I think everything is fascinatingly put together. The whole, his rise and fall, and the whole dynamics. I think it exposes a lot of myths that we have entertained about, the Middle East medieval history. And yep, I'm waiting for your next book. Maybe we have time for audience questions. Okay, so just my last question before I leave the floor open.
It was a very interesting journey because I have stopped talking about this subject right now. I was exploring into history of Islam. For obvious reason, I have stopped. I have left it as an untouchable thing. So that's when I came across an Iranian scholar who calls himself an ex-Muslim. And he teaches Islamic studies in Iran, and he had written a lot of papers as well from different names on the whole Islamic history, because he has got a very different opinion about how Islam originated. He has this thesis that it never happened in where it happened in Mecca. It perhaps happened in upper part of the Arabia, that is towards Persia and all those things. So he agreed to tell me much about the Persian manuscript readings. So right now I may not be very fluent to speak in Persian, but I can read the words that what manuscript is talking about. And then I do refer to the original, the authentic dictionaries, which gives you the translation of this word Persian to this. So that way I have tried to pick it up. And it was a process of more than 1.5 years, which it took me to read the words thoroughly. So I can now read it. I have read the Babar Nama manuscript. So I'm sure that the next one in the thing is the Humayun Nama. I'm looking to read that too. And then let's see.
Quickly talk about your upcoming books, before the next question.
Yeah, so the sequel of this certainly would be coming, and in that I'm gonna deal with 3-4 important subjects apart from Baba's life as it goes. So I say those 3-4 as an important subject because even in this book I have put in a lot of notes, and I will request people to go through the notes because notes are not just for the reference, like they are things which are beyond Baba's life. Because my publisher also wanted me to put it into, not merge it with the narrative or the flow of the Babur. So I had to put in the notes, like say for example, there's a land called Kafiristan. I don't know how many of you have heard about it. So Kafiristan is also called Nuristan. So we have also got a land called the land of Zuns or the Zunbils. So Zunbils are very interesting people, and they are considered to be the sun worshipper, and Babur had come across them. And interestingly, these Juns or the Junbils were in the time.
They are different from the Mitraists.
Almost similar, because all these, there were 3 kind of people who were living there. One was the Hindu Shahis, or the one of the Hindu Shahi king's brother Rutbil had founded the Zun Empire or the Zunbils. And some people thought that they were Zoroastrians because of the fire worshipping. And fire worshipping is essential aspect of every Indic religion if you look at it. And they worshipped the sun. So in the next book, I'm going to touch upon how Persia got Islamized. What exactly had happened from the primary sources. Because it was quite a quick thing. And Zoroastrians were not just like that, they will just let it go. They were very brutal warriors. Brutal, I use the term brutal. They were brutal warriors. And
as long as Persia was strong, I guess Europe could not come this
yes,
side.
And a lot of battle, because the whole dynamics initially was about the battle between Persia and the Byzantine. It was all about that. That's the battle was scripted whole of history. So there were 2 empires. One of the Persians and one was the Byzantinians. They were the most powerful guys, and they were scripting the history the way they wanted to. And so I want to talk about the how they got Islamized. At the same time, I want to touch upon, because while Babur is entering into Hindustan, there is one very interesting thing is happening. Enlightenment has happened in Europe, and the inquisitions have started. So what is the other aspect of colonization is happening at the same time when Babur is looking to colonize Bharat. So what was the world dynamics? I want to touch upon that. Certainly I want to look at Ayodhya's Ram Janmabhoomi at a different
Almost
angle.
like a movie trailer, the kind of wait for the next part.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience?
Just wanted to ask that, do you think in coming years there could be a shift in the way we see history in school, or the way they teach history in school? Because as of today, it's very glorified with the Mughals and all of that, right? Do you think there could be a shift?
I don't know about schools, but all I can say is that these questions come almost every time, that what we can do for the history books. So I have a very standard answer to this. I will repeat that standard answer, that there was a period when a lot of materials were generated. Like if you want to go back to understand Mughal Empire, or the Timurid Empire rather, they should not be called Mughals because they never like to call them. So what are the sources for you? You have the works of Irfan Habib. You have works of Shireen Mushfi in terms of the economic angle. They worked on the economic angles quite a lot. So these are the sources. So they worked a lot to create a lot of information. There were a lot of information. So what was inserted in the NCERT books was out of those information which was available. So now if we even want those things to be brought into the books, we need to first create create a narrative in a very fluid manner, more like a very comprehensive books. There's a lot of narratives which scattered here and there. One question which was asked to me by my publisher, that how do you justify that you are writing on the Mughals or the Timurids while all the Namas already exist? So a answer was that I'm trying to compress it and bring it into all one series, that it's a comprehensive book. If you want to touch upon the Timurid Empire, you have the book. This, of course, my name is Aabhas, so I'll say the book by Aabhas was stacked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you can pick it, you get all at one place. So now the information is there in terms of Timurids. Similarly, like how Vikram Sampath worked on the Savarkar, so it also caters to a certain period. So we have a lot of information around it. So likewise, Meenakshi Jain has done certain work. So we are getting a lot of information now. So all those things can be brought together, and maybe someday, I don't know which government to do whatever they want to do, they can. But again, what they do at max is that they dilute the syllabus, but they don't add the information. So dilution can't help, like they will delete something. Like somewhere in Karnataka we had the news that we will not teach about Tipu Sultan. Why should we do that? You should know about Tipu. What exactly was his character? What he wanted to do? Was he really the first freedom fighter? Actually he was not, because he was bargaining with the French, right? So I don't want to dwell into that, but yeah, we need to have those information brought together, and perhaps someday something will happen. We can keep writing the books and you can read.
If you had to write the book of 2019, about Modi again in 2024, what would you change?
So perhaps I will not touch this subject, because no, I'll be very honest about it, because actually I don't know why the title was put Modi again, but actually that book was an ex-communist manifesto. It was 90% of my life and 10% of why I want Modi back, because I had a realization, because I was a Modi hater, I was a Modi basher, and I hated him like anything. I have to say that. But the realization what I got from the understanding of my own reading is, I stressed upon the Ram Janmabhoomi movement. That was a really pivotal part of my life. I could relate that how important it was. And if a political party is posing for something like that, it was a party to go for from my political point of view, because politically I had become a right wing, if you have to say. Though I don't believe in this gymnastics of right and left, because it's very European, it can't be fitted in our Indian context. But I won't write in 2024, because there are a lot of people writing a book on Modi, better one, thicker ones. So yeah.
Congratulations, Mr. Abbas.
Thank you.
I am Vidyasagar. Just a small question. What inspired you initially to embrace Marxism?
Okay. So, can I take 3-4 minutes to answer this long one? Okay. So,
Marxism to Sadar Pranam. What was the
yeah,
journey?
that's okay. So I'll take 7 minutes. So, as a Hindu, what generally happens is that the school of thought is a bit too open-minded. And whichever is open-minded and which is a lot more open school that way, you are bound to get flawed and you are bound to get delusion, it's bound to happen. And because there are not so much boundings. In my family traditions would be followed that puja has to be done this way and everything is fine. But no one is bothered if I am not interested into the puja paddhati or etc. etc. And for a person or a guy who is in a standard 8 or 9 or something, and he's so passionate about scientific studies, he just can't find rational to what's happening in our samskaras or what's happening around. And also no elders is forcing you to that, you have to do it. And then you start diverting. And by the time I entered into the architecture school, a lot of things have changed, because now I'm a big critic of Le Corbusier even. And but when you look at the architectural education, in that we talk a lot about the modernism, we talk a lot about postmodernism. Like if you look for the theory of architecture, it's very much inspired by those ideas. It's very fine till the time when we are building the buildings. But if a guy like me who is interested into literature, and you further start exploring into it, peeling into it, from modernism and postmodernism, I got back to the literature of Marxism. And I read all the works of Karl Marx, and somehow I felt of someone who is stepping into 20s that main to kranti la hi dunga, I will change the world. and I will be that, close fist or revolutionary. And I felt that Marxism can now do the things for me. And by the time, say, when Anna movement had happened, and by then we all had seen that what Congress had in the baggage for us, because the whole the corruption capitala had opened up. So that made me certainly drift away from Congress for sure. BJP was certainly not my party, because this is a party of mandir and religion for me, and Hindutva. And me being a rationalist person who doesn't believe in religion and tradition, etc., felt that, it's better to be not Congress, but be somewhere in the left. And Kejriwal looked to me like somewhat a masiha of a communist masiha or something like that. And that's how I perceived him like. And but while these are going on, it was a journey to the Ajanta caves, which changed my whole journey and political pursuit. When you enter into the Ajanta caves, you step in and then you step down. And there are a lot of paintings painted inside the caves. Now, as an inquisitive architecture student, I had asked the guide that time that how these paintings were made. The guy couldn't answer, because I had this question, because the caves are the dark places, right? And how can you do the paintings? Because you don't have a source of light. You don't have electricity when these paintings were being made. And there was one very senior architect who could tell me about it. He had a wooden model kept at his house. Professor Deshpande, he's also an architect in Aurangabad. So he brought me in there and he used a torchlight. And section of a building is basically, if you slice a building, then what you see is a section. So he brought the torch and the sectional model, and then he put some water inside the section, because when you enter Ajanta Caves, there is a ditch, you step down. So he stored water, and light was incident onto that water, and suddenly the light was reflecting upward. So he said that those monks are using so-called methods of the Snell law, that is using the reflection of light to paint inside, because had he used fire, those organic colors, because they were the organic color, they will just go away. How can you paint without the light? So they were using the so-called Snell's law of reflection to generate the light. And I was like that, whom I thought to be the superstitious one, the fool ones and whatever, like Babas and all. They were so brilliant people. They were doing the paintings like that. And that began my sojourn, and I began to explore into the Indic ideas. Started with Buddhist studies. Thoda bahut, I started Buddhist history. That's why I'm very interested in Buddhist history even now. And so on and on. Then I read a bit of Indic work, and certainly I was, if you want to call right wing. I don't believe in it, but that's what I am.
Hi. So you remember and I remember that when we were studying history, at least I remember being very, very happy that when it comes to the Chola Empire and the Vijaya Empire and all the South Indian empires, there's hardly like 2-3 pages. And okay, so that saves the problem, like I don't have to read that much. Since you are touching upon Babur, and it just came to my mind yesterday when we were talking, are you going to touch upon those? Because I specifically remember about 500 to 700 years of history of South India being completely wiped out in our books. Will you ever touch on that?
See, in the current book, I am touching a bit upon the Vijayanagar Empire, but certainly right now my focus is to dislodge or whatever, like bring information or dislodge information, whatever the way it exists, to talk about the Timurids for next, I think, 10-12 years, because Vikram Sampath was saying 7 books, but now it seems it's going to be 9, because Babur is going to be 2 and Akbar seems like it's going to be 3. So that is the period I am touching upon. It's maybe in the passing I will be able to reflect a bit upon the southern empires, because they are very much involved as this empire is progressing. Because as I said, Vijayanagar is certainly which I will deal with, because it's important to tell about what that empire was. You have to set the context that what Bharat was like when these guys were trying to enter the Bharat. Like, when in 180 we had 32% GDP share. In 1000 AD we had 28.1% GDP per share. But in India today, what they will show you? Mughals gave us 25% GDP share, but boss, before that it was 28 and 32. Right? So I want to touch upon those angles and why India was richer. Because certainly because the southern kingdoms, they were doing a lot of things at the same time while they were making our people poorer. You will surprised to know that GDP per capita growth was negative only in one period, and that's between 1500 to 1820 AD. Not even in time of British, it was negative. And that's supported by the account of Franco-Bernier, a physician who had visited the court of Akbar, where he says that poor is becoming poorer because all the money is hoarded by, and Irfan Habib talks about the hoarding of money by Akbar. He has given a lot. So these are things which I really want to bring in light to the people, because these are not known. Like I spoke about how Akbar got his name. No one knows that how he got his name, Akbar. There's so many things. And so maybe that someone else will surely be looking on the southern kingdoms, and they must be addressed. And they must be spoken about in detail.
Just want to add a point. When the Vijayanagara, the topic came up, there's a gadya about Aliya Ramaraya, who's, we know that the greatest was Krishnadevaraya, but his son-in-law, the epithets given to him, one of them was Dhilli Pura Hallakallola Karaka. He never invaded Delhi, but it was known that Delhi was afraid of him. I just thought I'll quote the point.
No, just to add what he spoke, South Indians' history and culture has not been written very well. Similarly, I recently traveled to your own state, Jharkhand, and you see the rulers of Magadha and Gupta and other rulers. Their history is not written at all. We don't know anything about Bihar. See, Bihar was one of the most prosperous state some point of time. And that point of time, the Jainism and Buddhism has come from that place, which has completely, disappeared from that state, though it is just written in the Gujarat and other part of the state. So any research on that, because it's your state, I thought I'll just add something, whether you will do some research on that and bring some, Magadha empire. Thanks.
Yeah, I think we have quite a lot of work on Magadha Empire, but certainly it has come from economics or rather the Marxist lens. We don't have a lot of work on Magadha Empire which can be considered a very authentic work, like go to work. For example, if you want to speak about, say, Aurangzeb, then Jadunath Sarkar is a man to go for, like the way he has documented the entire fall of Mughal Empire. So we surely don't have those works, but as I said that because I have kind of preoccupied myself with this, one may like it or not, but this empire, Sultanate or whatever. So I don't see that I will be able to touch upon these for next 8-10 years if the thing goes as I have planned. But I will surely, if once this is done, I will surely look to do more on it. And we have something interesting coming up about Buddhist history and something which we will also talk about in the future. So there's some more work in pipeline apart from this. Yeah.
I hope more historians would be inspired to carry out. So we have so many dynasties to uncover.
Yeah, so many. India is such a vast land.
Conversation we had and an enlightening session. On behalf of Prabha Khaitan Foundation, I, Poonam Bafna, SAS Women of Coimbatore, would like to express my sincerest gratitude to the eminent chief guests, T V Mohandas Pai, Vikram Sampath, and Mr. Naveen Jha, to do the honors. Yeah, I also, who have done the honors of unveiling the book. We missed you, Mr. Naveen, that time. I also express my gratitude to author Aabhas ji and conversationalist Sai Swarupa Iyer for engaging in a fascinating discussion about the book and the writing process that created such a literary masterpiece. I would also like to thank our patron, Shree Cements Limited, for supporting today's event. Last but not the least, a big round of applause for the most amazing and receptive audience. Without your presence and support, today's Kitaab event in Bengaluru would not have been successful and enjoyable. Good night, stay safe and stay happy.
Balmare बतियां बनाए बलमा रे तोरे नैना बड़े चित चोर
Ba da ni sa, ba da ni sa, ba da ni sa, ba da ni